Chris Dwyer. I quoted Isaac Nada for really having an influence on Jay and Isaac Nada. Isaac for having an influence on my life and coming in at a time in my life when I needed it. It was really special. I told Jay that. And Isaac was the tight end at Georgia, and that as a freshman, I believe it was his freshman year, he made the 2008 key block for Sonny Michel running on the edge to scoring a double overtime victory over Oklahoma, and then he gave me the compliment of my life to telling that that I could train NFL athletes right now. It's all about the nervous system, and he played for the Green Bay Packers for a couple years, and then but now he does work for Jersey Mike's, and hopefully maybe he'll come with me on some leadership type mental toughness and confidence, and that's what I just started studying great athletes like Isaac Nada, and started kind of with Nick Saban, but I realized that using AI was really key because I'm dyslexic, and it's really good about putting bullet points and stuff like that. And I started just researching this stuff on Tom Brady and guys like Greg Maddox, and I realized that it was really about the nervous system. They're not the best athletes. And Tony Gwynn, is a prime example of it. He didn't look like the biggest, strongest stud ever. Tony Gwynn is a classic example of it. But there's no better hitter, and it's about the nervous system. But I put up a quote this morning, and really Isaac influenced that. And he said, when we spoke, I was telling him about Bruce Lee and some of the techniques that I was using in sports psychology to let my mind, and I do it with walking, to simplify things. And it builds clarity and it helps the nervous system. And in the NFL, they train those guys on the nervous system. They train them not to react. And Isaac told me, and I had him repeat it a couple times. And I kept asking him. He said, "Your scars are your greatest gifts in life." And I quoted. I read an art. It was a great LinkedIn post. It's gonna go. I reposted it today. But something negative in your life, and alcohol was really a problem with that. With me, because I shielded everything and I masked everything for probably all my life. And when I started drinking when I was, I guess I was 15 years old. I remember when it was. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, and it's not. It's not. It's connecting with somebody like that gives you a compliment that you work on, and realize that all the work that you've done on yourself, to not having to have a drink. To do that. No, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a drink. It is with an addictive personality like myself. It is. In a sense, I should say, for me it was, and because I don't like to judge people. It's an addiction. It's not fair. You shouldn't call people alcoholics and stuff like that, or just kind of generalize it. It's not really fair in my opinion. I don't. It's killed my sister. It killed my mom, and my younger sister's hanging on with it, and whatnot. And it sucks. It's throughout both sides of my family, and my uncle went through it with his parents, and his brother, that unfortunately died at way too young of an age, and it was certainly alcohol induced. But with alcohol, you mask it, and it's when you're an empathetic person like myself. I am an empath, and I feel other people, and as my sister did that unfortunately passed away. But it's like Isaac said again. He said, your scars are your greatest gifts in life, and I kept asking him. I said, what was it? What did you say again? And I just quoted that. That's such a great saying. Because you can connect with people every day, and I do it all day long, and I just I think I've always been certainly friendly with people, but my personality didn't come out for meeting so many people every day, almost every single day. When I realized, I kind of read this article. the people that work at gas stations or whatever you see every day. Those are great people to help improve your life. But even the new people that I meet people all the time. I've got a new friend in Chick-fil-A. I was telling her about my website, ChatGPT for PTSD, and she's like the third person in Chick-fil-A that's I've had an influence on. I can just tell. But it's just I was just telling her about stretching and whatnot, and the other day she was walking through and she was like, "See you later." I mean, it's really neat to have um, have an influence on somebody, but you're kind of culmination of so many people, even Isaac Nauta. I mean, he's a hero of mine. And hopefully we can do some. I even asked his dad, whom I'm in touch with. I've only talked with Isaac this once, but I haven't said his dad, would he like to do some leadership courses, because he went through it too. I mean, from something that I read, with the financial crisis, his dad's a financial advisor, and they lost a lot. And I read some article where Isaac was having to go to the UPS store. I'm sorry, the dollar store every day, and I lived at the dollar store for the better part of 2025, because I didn't want to worry people. There was too much noise going on that was out of my control. And but you know what? I developed a lot of friendships. I told a girl in the dollar store the other day, I said, in my first big, I said, if it wasn't for the store, I probably wouldn't be where I am right now. I said, I'm flying all of y'all out. But you can take an opportunity and turn it into a, you can turn a negative. I'm sorry, you can turn any negative outcome into a positive, in my opinion, and those are often much stronger, because anything that's positive that comes your way just comes. You're not working for it. It just kind of comes typically. I mean, anything that's just positive, you're just given something in life. It doesn't really create any self-efficacy, and self-efficacy develops technically different modes in your brain, or creative problem solving. And you get stronger each time. And like I said, our scars are our greatest gifts. And it's in that in the NFL, they teach those guys to develop resilience. And it builds resilience. And I mean, I've specifically led every single ups and downs, and even things that in 2015, 2025, where I spent the better part really alone, really and it's going on again, almost for the fourth time. Third time, I should say, that I've had to block myself out from stuff in my life, to concentrate on myself. But this time it's been really phenomenal, because I've got something I can build for, and I can talk with people and help people for the rest of my life. And there's so much need out there for it now. I just saw two of my former clients in my first business, and Dennis and Angela Buttermer. They're in from Mindful Leadership, and they just got hired by UPS to come in and do like a seminar. It's pretty cool. And I can remember Dennis coming in and buying CDs from me that he used to send out, and because I used to reproduce them for him, that he would give out to, I guess, snippets or samples, to try to get into companies and whatnot. And there's a tremendous need out there for mindful leadership. These Generation Z, they ain't gonna take talk. They've COVID changed. They're not gonna take it with they're not gonna. Man, I work for the most toxic company out there. I would yell, and I mean, it was just the leadership was just as bad as it could be. And but I was very happy that I got into that. One, it was in technology, and two, I saw how bad it was. And I saw how archaic their engineering and software was, and they even will get bought, or they're going to go out of business. Period. It's that bad, and I've done the research on it, and it's just amazing what you can happen. It was one of the best things I've ever done, is get up after 3 days of my integrity insult, and you just don't insult my integrity. This is a no. You just don't do it. And I know why. I know why it was happening. I don't have any evidence of that. I'm sure I'm correct. I knew 10 times more than anybody in that company. Certainly in creative branding and in technology. When I researched it, and anyway, but they can see it. I can even see it in their words that they're writing on LinkedIn. That how they've stolen my words. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. But there's still stuff that they miss. It's so wrong. But anyway, it was but that's something you just don't do. Is insult my integrity and my character. And I got up and left. I said, I said, I'm out of here. And I put my laptop down. I shoved it, and I put my key on top of it. And I went over to my coworker that I worked with every day for 2 weeks. And I shook his hand, and I said, I can't remember what I said. I said, thank you. I'm out of here. And he didn't really know. And he called me later that night, and he said, are you okay? And I said, man, I'm great. I said, I'm not going to tell you what happened, but I said, I'm not going to have my integrity insulted like that. And I didn't go into it. And I said, but, thank you. And he said, I just wanted to make sure you were okay, and if everything's all right with your doctor. And I said, everything's fine. And I said, I was just not going. I was really on the upswing, and I had been off all the antidepressant drugs for year and a half. But he knew I was. But we didn't know I had PTSD at the time. But it was, I'd had some amazing things that had happened to me about a year prior that he knew about. Everybody, that even that manager knew about, where it just shot up, and all of a sudden